Good morning and welcome to Advocates for Angels Monday Facebook Live. I'm Valerie Abrahamian and I'm the IEP Navigator. I help parents receive the education their child needs to thrive both in school and in life after high school. So today's Facebook Live is that school districts across the nation are denying in-person services, which is a violation of the American with Disabilities Act, which is Title II of federal law. So what I want to talk about this morning is to let parents know that for the past probably month now, I've been providing parents with legal grounds to ask for in-person services if your child is receiving a virtual schooling or a remote learning. So for the majority of those students, receiving remote or virtual schooling is not working because the majority of kiddos on an IEP require in-person services. And telehealth services for occupational therapy, speech and language, whatever the service may be, it's not serving to be effective. Kids are not receiving benefit from those telehealth services. Many children, I'm talking about, I'm not saying every child, but many children are not receiving benefit for those in-person because they are not in person, as well as academic instruction for receiving educational benefit for kids just to learn. Children are not able to access the remote or virtual schooling. It's just a fact. So I've been providing lots of legal grounds and ways that parents, you can ask your local school district to provide in-person services. So I'm not going to go into those other legal grounds this morning because that's in other past videos. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll be able to access all of my Monday morning Facebook Lives as well as my Wednesday night town hall meetings where I talk about those other legal grounds. This morning, I'm focusing on Title II, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the Americans with Disabilities Act is basically the 504. It encompasses the 504, which is the other legal support system in education that students can receive. If a student, typically what happens if a student doesn't qualify for an IEP, but qualifies for a 504 plan, it falls under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the ADA actually exists to make sure that anyone with a disability is not discriminated against and has access to anything in our society and basically everyday living a life in the United States. So as an example, if a person was in a wheelchair, if they went to a store and there was not a ramp to have that person access that store, that would be a violation of the ADA for discrimination against that person for not having access to that store. So it's the same thing with a 504. It's basically access to an education. So the fact that our kids do not have access to an education virtually, which is what the districts are offering, is virtual schooling at this time. Those children that don't have access to virtual schooling, they are being discriminated against, and it's a violation of ADA. So parents, now you have another legal grounds to write a complaint with the for the American with Disabilities Act violation, Title II, that your child is being discriminated against because they cannot access virtual schooling. I know most of the parents I'm working with today, their child is not able to access virtual schooling because they have to have their parent sit next to them the entire time that they are required to be on virtual or remote schooling in order for that child to access. If there wasn't an adult sitting next to that student would not be accessing anything. Because first of all, the student would not be sitting in the chair. The student would not have a computer in front of them. The student would not be able to log on to the computer, open the computer, log on, get to the right link, Be prompted to stay on task, be prompted to listen to the teacher, be prompted and assisted to go into a breakout room, on and on and on. And then go, okay, now we're done with this teacher. Now we're going to go to our speech and language link, and then access that link. Get on the link, click the link, get on the link, talk to the service provider. This requires an adult sitting next to these kids every minute in order to access that virtual schooling. Now, those parents that are sitting there next to that kiddo, they're not getting paid to be a one-on-one aide. If that parent hires a person to be that adult aide sitting next to that child, that parent is not getting reimbursed to pay for another tutor or an adult or an aide to sit next to that person. ADA says that parent should be reimbursed if you are hiring another adult to assist your child to be successful and access virtual schooling, or you should be paid if you have had to take time off of work in order to be the one-on-one aide for your child. And even if you haven't had to take off work, you should be getting paid to be the one-on-one for that child. Now, the second thing you can do is that you can actually write a letter. It has to be in writing, or you ask for it in an IEP meeting, that you are requesting a one-on-one aide be sent to your home every day for your child to access the virtual or remote schooling. It's completely within your rights under the American with Disabilities Act, Title II, federal law. So let me just give you a couple more in terms of a description on that ADA regulations. So if a school district is providing remote or virtual learning opportunities to all students, which they are, they're offering it to all the students in a district if they are on a virtual or remote learning model, then the ADA requires that school district to make sure its student with disabilities are able to fully access those opportunities. So they're not making that fully accessible to students with disabilities, because a student with disabilities cannot access it unless they have a person there to assist them. If a student with disabilities needs in-person supports to turn on their tablet, log on to Google Classroom or Zoom, and participate in class, then the district is required to ensure they have those supports to do those things. Number 3, the district can either provide the in-person supports or reimburse the student's family for providing them. Number 4, districts cannot require students with disabilities to take risks by coming into school buildings, and that's the only way to receive accommodations. So for those, and that's referring to those school districts that are offering maybe a what's it called, when they go halfway into school, and a hybrid program. So some districts are offering like 3 days a week of in school and 2 days a week of remote, or half and half, like that. And for those school districts, they can't tell the parents, well, your child must come into the school grounds in order to get in-person services. They can't say that either, parents, because many parents are not comfortable in sending their child to school because your child might be immune compromised, or have health issues, and you don't feel comfortable sending your child to school. So you can opt to stay home and have the aide come to your home in order to allow your child to access the virtual schooling model. So ADA also says, without a full-time in-person aide to provide support necessary for the student to access instruction, it is denying the student access to a public education and a violation of ADA. This is also a discrimination of ADA. It's violating the ADA law because of discrimination, because school districts are placing conditions or barriers on students with disabilities to access any kind of virtual instruction that they aren't placing on students without disabilities. So that's also, a factor that comes into the discrimination of those kiddos. And it also says a public entity may comply with the requirement of the section through such means as assignment of aides, home visits, or other methods that result in making its services, programs, or activities readily accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. And that's 28 CFR section 35.150 small a. So right there it says that absolutely school districts can provide aids, home visits, and any other methods that result in making their programs readily accessible to individuals with disabilities. Another regulation in Title II states a public entity may not place a surcharge on a particular individual with a disability or any group of individuals with disabilities to cover the costs of measures such as the provision of auxiliary aids or program accessibility that are required to provide that individual with the non-discriminatory treatment required by the act of this part. So they're saying right there that they can't place a surcharge on the parent of a child with a disability because that parent is having to pay for an aid to have their child access virtual schooling. So, and that is also, let me give you that regulation. It is 28 CFR section 35.130 small f, and that's ADA Title II regulation. So parents, that's basically what I wanted to cover today. I did also go over that even more in depth in my last Wednesday night town hall meeting. So I hope that will help you in advocating for your child to receive in-person services. In California, we are still not open. There are no many school districts across the nation, across the state of California that remain closed, and we remain in a virtual schooling model. Children continue to regress daily in not accessing education and not receiving educational benefit. So thank you, parents, and stay well and God bless. And I'll see you next Monday morning for my next Facebook Live. Take care, everyone.